Welcome to the Human First podcast with me, Adrian Murphy. Today I am delighted to be sitting with Andrew Dobbie, the CEO of Made Brave. It's great to have you here, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
Been a fan of yours from a distance for a while now. I love what you do. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about your journey and how you got to where you are today. For those who maybe haven't seen the podcast yet, it's really just about, it's about your story. It's about great conversations and how you think about, business and family and money and health and the kind of cross section of all of that. So we'll just get into a very kind of natural conversation. We'll see where we go with it. Does that sound okay?
Perfect. Sounds great.
Great. Okay. Well, why don't you first of all tell us a wee bit about one of the things I'm quite interested in. This changes all the time. What's most important to you right now before we get into your kind of background and up to where you are today?
In terms of just business or
go on,
life?
Yeah,
or
go on, whatever in your life right now, because it does, we know from what we do on a day-to-day basis, depending on when you ask somebody that question, you get very different answers.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because you never know quite what's going on inside people's heads and where they are.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I've had quite a busy period. This little period here that we've just been moving office as a business.
Mm-hmm.
So they say moving house is a stressful thing to do. The person that said that has obviously never moved a business.
No,
you've got like servers and all these things to happen,
yeah.
And then you've got one new office to build. You've got another one to remove.
Yes.
So I've had that, and then at the same time, actually, my wife has just had a hip replacement.
Oh gosh, right, okay.
She's young, so I'm 43, she's 49.
Yeah.
That's young, I promise.
Yeah.
I'm still telling myself that as well. But no, it came on quite quickly. So it came out of the blue. She was kind of hobbling around a bit, and then it got worse and worse. And then we went for a scan, and they're like, no, you need to get this done pretty quickly. So she was in and out, and yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever seen a hip replacement. I'd never thought about it before.
I haven't.
But it's like they saw the top of your leg off, and then they replace the hip joint. And so she's been so brave, and obviously, but that's meant that she couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
so
of
she's
course.
She's kind of bedbound, and she's got a bell, and she likes a lot of tea.
Is it worn out yet?
I know, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping by the time I get home today. But so I've kind of had the mix of all those things.
Yeah.
So it's been a pretty busy period for me, actually. So trying to run a business as normal, trying to move a business, and then trying to run and make 1,000 cups of tea in a day as well. So
how do you do that? 'Cause I'm always interested in it's a great answer, and I hope your wife's all right. What's your wife's name?
Pam. She's Pam.
I hope Pam's okay.
She's doing good.
Good.
She had got a thumbs up from the physio, so she's been
That's
great.
excellent.
Doing really
That's
well.
excellent news. I'm sure she'll see some great benefits from that. But that's a lot all at once. How did you kind of work your way through that and manage that? Because you've got huge responsibility with the business. You've got have you got a son?
Son Finn. So he's 13.
Yes, so, 13 as well.
So all that stuff.
All of that going on. So how in your head and day to day, how do you manage all of that?
That was quite intense. I'm going to say that's been quite an intense moment. They're not always quite the same, but I think the important thing is always having a support structure around you as much as possible.
Yeah.
And thankfully, luckily now in my business, I'm at the point where I do have a structure around me and a structure below that supports and leads the business. So I've in the fortunate position, I've got an MD, I've got a leadership team, and all these people really, that structure really helps. But not everyone's like that. So some people are at the beginning of their business journey, and I remember being there, and specifically that first year of your business, you're doing everything. And you've got none of that structure around you, and it can be pretty overwhelming. Yeah. So it's kind of almost reminded me in this moment of how lucky I have been. And for me, the way that my wife and I, Pam, when I've run Made Brave, we're both essentially running it, but with different roles, if that makes sense. That she's supported running and nurturing Finn and looking after everything in the family so that I could focus on Made Brave. So that's a real partnership. Yep. And I often get the glory, I suppose, because I'm on the front line, but actually a lot of the it wouldn't have happened if Pam hadn't been supporting me in the background. Yeah,
it is really important to acknowledge the people that do support you, but that are perhaps unseen.
Yeah,
it's all well and good with the
heroes.
Absolutely. You've got the profile and as you say, maybe some of the glory, but you wouldn't be able to do it alone.
Absolutely,
so it's a great point. Thank you for that. So going back to you and your career, maybe going back to the beginning again. pre-Made Brave, where did you start out?
Yeah, well, so I'm from this little place called Biggar, which is kind of halfway between Glasgow and Edinburgh. So it's 30 miles either way. And so I grew up in the country down there. My mum, who's a single parent, and I was always really creative. So I was either going to do music, I played guitar and played in bands when I was young, or I was going to do something creative, but didn't quite know what that was. And I moved to Glasgow when I was 18.
Right.
And I studied at Glasgow College of Building and Printing. I say studied, I partied.
Attended.
Very loosely.
Occasionally.
Yeah. I don't think they ever let me out when I was in the country, and then I got put in a city. But no, I studied multimedia design and production. I then went on to Paisley Uni and did multimedia systems, thinking back. And when I left university, I got a job working for the ex-Scotland football captain and Celtic football captain, Paul McStay.
Oh.
So I know nothing about football, right? Nothing. I didn't even know who Paul was, and and it always was really weird to me because everywhere we would go, everyone really knows who Paul McStay is, and he's an absolute gentleman and a lovely guy. And so I worked for Paul, and it was his company. We were called Midgie Bike Creations. I was like, it was me and my other friend. My other friend left, and then it was just me and Paul McStay in this room, and it grew to sort of 8 or 9 people, and we did loads of property design, property websites, all sorts of stuff. So I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades in terms of I was a creative, but I did websites and photography and videography, and so I stayed there for 8 years, I think, and the company, as I say, was sort of no bigger than that at any time. And then I needed, literally, when Finn, my little son, so he's 13 now, so when he was on the way, I was like, I need some more money. It was just a small company, couldn't afford to pay any more. And I thought, right, well, what a great time to leave your job and go out on your own. So I literally had my last wage at the time, and I left when Finn was a couple of weeks old. And I didn't set off to create an agency.
How was Pam feeling about that at that point?
I think we were I think naivety was probably on our side, on both of our sides.
What you don't know, I suppose.
You didn't know, yeah. And I think it was the realisation of like, Pam's going to be stopping working. I wasn't on a great deal of money, and then you're looking at your bills, you're looking at the house and going, shit, how are we actually going to do this? Yeah. And so it was more a necessity thing. It was kind of, I'd never known anyone that run a business in my life. It just wasn't, my mum was a nurse. She worked night shift. Yep. And my dad had left home at an early age. So I wasn't surrounded by entrepreneurs. I didn't even know that word, honestly, and I still can't spell it. I only heard that word when I was 31 or something, actually, about a year after having a business. People were like, oh, you're an entrepreneur. I was like, what's that?
How dare you call me that?
So yeah, I didn't set off to create Made Brave or any of these things. I just set off to earn some money. That was really honestly my driver. And I suppose now, having seen lots of people start businesses and do things, there's different drivers for each of us. Yeah. And starting a business is not always the right one for everyone. I just went out, and in that first year I did 6 weddings because I was a photographer. So I got someone to agree to do a wedding. I did a few of those. I started doing baby photography because I was going to be around new mums and dads, and I thought, well, maybe I could marry those skills together. Yep. And then I did the sort of graphic design as it was then, really, and it was very stressful. I mean, I was up all day doing stuff, and then at night, Pam was knackered, and she'd come home and I'd get Finn, and then so I was up all night with Finn. And anyone's a new parent, they'll know, the stress is real when you're adjusting to, parenthood. And so I just did all of those things, juggling. I try and make more money, and very quickly I realised that I enjoyed the business side of it, and basically I'd realised the baby photography was a bit of a nightmare, the wedding photography was a bit of a nightmare, and luckily for me the sort of design side really took off. And so within that first year, I'm trying to think back now. So I was basically sitting across from, I shared a room with another bunch of freelancers. And there was a designer much better than I am at design, and he was looking to stop being a designer because he was fed up with the business side. And so I said, why don't you work for me? And he said, well, Andrew, I need 30 grand or thereabouts. I've got a family, etc. And I didn't have 30 grand, but what I had squirreled away at that point was probably 6 or 7 grand. And I thought, well, they've got a probationary period, and a 30 grand salary is about 2.5 grand a month. So the risk is really about 7.5. So I've kind of got that. So I hired him, and then by the end of year one, we had 6 people in the team just following the same model. And I didn't borrow any money.
Brilliant.
And I think there's a pressure often that you've got
Yeah.
to go out and raise.
Yeah,
Everyone feels
yeah.
like this kind of entrepreneurial hustle, or everyone feels great if they've raised money. But I just, obviously, a service-based business is quite different.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
transact time for money or value for money. So I was able to do so, and then off I went from there.
God, that's quite a start. So then on to where Made Brave is today. I mean, it's an incredible rise, if you like. So 12 years roughly.
13 years now, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Uh-huh.
Very, very.
I've aged about 30 years.
Yeah,
And that.
it'll do that to you. Won't it?
Oh, we could just have a sleep just now, couldn't we?
Just at that time, yeah. But it's, I've been, as I said at the start, been very aware of you over the years, and I've always liked what you did, and then you've been very, I'm assuming it was conscious decision to be quite high profile.
Yeah, well, I
raise
think
your personal profile.
It wasn't really for personal or selfish reasons
No.
as such. The reason I did it was that I thought, well, for a service-based business, you've got to be front of mind for people. And obviously, one way that you're going to get work is referrals, right?
Yep.
So that's by doing a good job for someone, you're going to refer them to your friend and a friend.
Yep.
But that's kind of, I looked at that and went, right, well, I'm going to do that anyway. So that's one pipeline of new business that's going to come from referral, and that's going to be a standard. And then, obviously, I'm a branding guy. I look at everything in terms of, well, Nike don't just rely on the shoes. They're comfortable to do the job of, I'm not just going to say, these are great, you should get them.
Yeah.
They also create a brand. They also advertise. So I thought agencies don't often do that for themselves. And it's just cobbler shoes. People are busy, stressed, and it's no one's not trying to. But I thought I'm going to have a concerted effort to grow a brand and grow a business. And so I separated the service offering, and I handed that to a creative director and said, look, I want you to be in charge of the clients, in charge of the work, and do a great job. And that's going to give that person autonomy, purpose, all of these things.
Yeah.
And they'll do a better job than me, because if I'm trying to do both of those things, it's very different brains, etc. And then I took, as the sort of founder, leader of the business, I said, well, I'm going to grow the brand. So I'm going to put every effort in to try and create a brand, knowing that if I invest that time, money and effort, that in the years to come, it's going to pay dividends for me and for the team and everything. So
yeah. And was there, along that way, you talked earlier about the support structure you've now got. There'll be different inflection points during that. It's something that comes up quite regularly. Can you pinpoint some of those, or pain points where you then made that next step?
It's tough, isn't it? Because I remember back in the first year or so, you are really doing everything in your business. Your marketing, cleaning the toilets, selling to someone, trying to figure out what a spreadsheet is, trying to figure out profit and loss,
HR department, everything.
HR. Then your first HR challenge comes, and you're like, oh my God, how am I meant to know this stuff? And so you're doing all of that. And someone said something really great to me, and it really stuck. And I'm trying to say it as many times when I'm on podcasts, because I found it really helpful. And someone else might do the same, is that they said, Andrew, if you're going to lead the business and you're going to actually have a business, your job is to have an empty desk. And the idea being that it's not to say, look, I don't do anything. It's that there needs to be someone in every single position around you that is better than you in every single position. So when something comes into your inbox, let's say it's an HR challenge, well, you should have someone that's way better. That if it's a finance thing, you've got a finance director. If it's marketing, you've got marketing, and so on and so forth. And if you've got nothing, then you can have the clarity to make sure you're leading the business. Now, it's never as perfect as that.
No,
everyone knows.
Lovely,
one day we'll get there, right? It is never as perfect, but it's almost, if you're aiming for that, it kind of starts to shape. And I think, I was speaking to someone the other day, and they've got loads going on. They've got great business, and they're super talented, and they've got so much going on. And I think a practical way to try and get that starting place, so if you're sitting at that point and going, I've got too much on, is to write down every task that you're doing in the business, every single thing. Then on another bit, write down what you want to be doing, right? So then create the role that you want to get to, and everyone will know what their strength or weakness is there. And then that gives you a kind of, right, well, here's my future state, here's what my current state is. Which parts of these am I going to hire in which order to start peeling them off until I get to this point here?
Yeah. I think it's really important because you can't, as you say, it doesn't just magically happen and you go, right, that's great, I can have every function that is required in my business today, and there you go, do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just
if you had
gonna be
unlimited money, it's probably you can.
I'm just going to be the inspiration. I'm going to be the figurehead. So you're right. It doesn't happen quite like that, and it's a really interesting way of doing it, because that will change as well as you go.
It's a moving feast, isn't it? Because
different iterations of that along the way.
Yeah, because you eventually get to a structure you think is right, and then someone leaves, or someone changes, or someone isn't performing the role the way you hoped it would be. So so it's never perfect. But I think you've just got to be striving for somewhere along those lines, and it will just keep iterating, and it'll get better, it'll get worse, it'll get better again, and so
ebbs and flows. I
always think as business, it's an organic thing. It breathes in, breathes out, and it goes up and down and changes shape. It's never quite. It's not a perfect thing, is it? It's not a widget. You're not widgets in and widgets out. So
no, because ultimately it's people.
Yeah.
Most of us are in one shape or form are dealing with people. So that brings its own challenges. It's massively beneficial as well, but it does, you're right.
Yeah, everyone's got their own hopes, wants, needs, desires, and your job as a leader is to try and balance all those as perfectly as you can, but it's not always as easy as possible.
And how do you then, because that's a really nice kind of segue, how do you think about your own, so you're caught up in, gosh, everything you were saying at the start between, Pam getting her hip and moving office and doing the laps in the other office, and you've got a teenager at home, and whatever else is going on. So how do you kind of manage that today? Like, where are you at with that?
Yeah, I think again, it's you come to these. At different years, you have a different version of yourself, don't you? And every some years you manage it better than others. Some years you manage it less well. I think I'm getting better removing myself from stressful situations when they happen, and just sort of detaching, sort of unclinking my brain a little bit, because you can. I think especially if you're younger and you're dealing with stressful situations, it can be pretty stressful.
Yeah.
But I've not got it perfect. I wouldn't say I've got it perfect. I try and do all the things that we're all meant to do in terms of I go to the gym with my friends, I talk to my friends. I've got entrepreneurial support networks. So I'm part of a group called EO, which is really invaluable, to be honest. There's a group of about 15,000 entrepreneurs around the world. And you basically get assigned 7 or 8 of them in a little forum. Yeah. And then there's a kind of wider group. And then once a month, we come together and we're all running different businesses. So someone will be a, Brazilian restaurant. Someone has soft plays. Someone has this, that. And then at those sessions, you open up and share personally, family and work, and get it all out. Yeah. Because you need to, because it's a lot to take on, especially when you've got family and businesses and all these kind of things mixed together. And then we help each other solve challenges or things. But what I really love about it is you're not allowed to give people advice, but you can give people an experience share. So if we were talking right now and you say, I'm going through this really tough situation, or how should I deal with it? So it means that you can hear people's stories, you can understand how they've gone through things, but you can decide whether you take it or not. Because if I was to give you advice, you'd say, that bugger Andrew told me to do this and everything broke.
wait till the next meeting.
I'll get him back. So I think the underlying thing there is that I think you need to find those support networks. And I've always found that's really, really important. And when I don't have those in my life, and it can be very isolating. So I think it's the usual stuff, but we're not always great at doing it ourselves. You're obviously doing triathlons. You're really keeping up on the health part.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used to do mixed martial arts, so I did that for years and years, and I've now got back injuries and all sorts of things. So
that'll do that to you, yes.
Exactly. But I think it's the blend of, isn't it? It's trying to have that, I think the other thing for me is, and one thing I did quite early on was, I don't do business after 6 o'clock at night, and I don't do it at the weekends. And that's just me personally. I found that when I was taking things beyond at night and reading emails, that was getting consumed. That I would read something in an email and then I'd lie awake or waste my whole night thinking about it. Whereas if you just don't read your email,
it's not there.
It's not
never
there.
happened.
And you read it in the morning, and in the morning you can get on with something else. So
because it's such an important thing. The technology allows you to do it do not disturb.
Yeah.
Done. Right?
Yeah.
We're terrible for just picking up and
I
just
know.
going, I'll just have a wee look.
A wee
And you go,
glance.
oh, I can't believe I've
Wish
picked
I
up.
never looked. Right.
But you know, you're never going to fix that problem in the middle of the night,
No.
lying awake, you know,
exactly.
grinding your teeth. It's just not, it's just not good.
Yeah.
It's so, I think we all, you know, we all get caught up in it. It's so important that we find ways of those, just those wee things, just dealing with it, because stress and then that leads to perhaps health issues and, you know, lack of motivation. It's just, it's a vicious kind of circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you think about all of that and then start thinking ahead, you know, you've got to where you are, you know, done a fantastic job. And it's really interesting, actually, some of the things you've learned along the way you've already shared. So how do you think about the future then? I mean, it's hard to think too far ahead, but even, you know, 3
It's
to 5
very hard
years,
in current climate with AI and everything changing it by the second. But yeah, no, I think I'm still enjoying the journey where I am. But at some point, I've got other ambitions for other businesses. I've got a head full of ideas. And
I got that impression when we were chatting earlier.
Yeah, I've constantly my brain's constantly sparking. But I think what I've tried to do and what I found was very challenging, but that my self-inflicted challenging is when I was younger in the business, all these opportunities come to you, right? When you get a bit of attention, etc. And I was like, yep, until suddenly you've got, whoa, so many things. And I think having met a lot of people who are successful or have sort of, done well in their life, and obviously that's subjective, but what I mean is they usually have clarity and focus on something. So I'm trying to focus on Made Brave. I'm trying to make that the best brand and company that I can, and then when that changes later on, I've got 1,000,001 ideas that I'd like to do as well. So
it's that entrepreneurial thing coming out again, isn't
it? How do you spell that?
don't even ask.
It's the worst thing to spell. Try it right now. See if you can do it, riff it off your head. It's the worst. I have to Google it every single time. I
always spell it. I know I always spell it wrong, and autocorrects for me. But that's how when you think about, you know, Made Brave and then, you know, all these ideas, how does that then go back to, you know, family and your partnership with, you know, Pam, and how you obviously have shared everything together to get, you know, to where you are today. So how does that come into it as you start to think about the future?
In terms of like,
well, how would you approach changing your circumstances, and you wanted to do something different?
Yeah, well, I think it's, you know, like part of that for me was bringing in an MD and bringing in a structure below me, so that frees my time up where I don't have to be in the business for every part of it. Yeah. I mean, I choose to be because I enjoy it, and I choose to be it sometimes because it maybe needs me at certain points. But I suppose I'm starting at this point in my career now to start, you know, if you can get your business almost running without you, it frees you up to have a little bit more opportunity. So I think it's not to say as an entrepreneur don't do many things. I think it's waiting for the right moment when you've got the systems in place to do so. So so for me at the moment, there's lots more opportunities coming to me just now. I'm getting asked to sit on many boards, and these all bring benefits. And you know, I think you can also get the enjoyment and that feeling of new business by investing in other businesses or advising other businesses. So I suppose I'm getting to that point where I maybe do that, and I've, you know, often thought about with Made Brave, there might be a different structure as we move forward, so that we, you know, we spin out different businesses and so on and so forth as well. So,
and then what does that allow you to do then, having done all of that?
Well, have a wee sit down, I think.
That you deserve it.
Well, I think that, you know, I think you're trying to get to a point where you don't have to be on the hamster wheel so much, isn't it? I think that's what we're all striving for. It's never, you know, money is a vehicle to get to that, isn't it? And that's what, you know, people look for, financial freedom, because they look for the ability to choose what they do with their time. And as we all get older, we all know that that's much more valuable. And, you know, being able to spend time with your family, being able to travel, being able to see things. I'm a big advocate of travel, and, you know, I believe the creative mind, you know, you can become more creative if you put more input into your brain. And so I try and say yes to every travel opportunity that comes my way.
I've noticed on your socials that
I go everywhere. I would go anything if you asked me. But no, it's really valuable though, because you often join dots that you didn't know were there, and so it's only until you get the diverse thoughts and the experiences into your brain, and then your brain wires them together, because creativity is ultimately about taking something that's familiar and adding something unexpected to it. Now, if you only know familiar and you don't put new input into your brain, you're not seeing this unexpected side. So I've just said yes, and I'm going to a trip to China on the 5th of November for 5 days. And that's because I will go and see unexpected things that I didn't know, and I'll add them to something else that I'm already doing, and I'll create a new idea for one of our clients, or I'll create a new business idea or something. And the more you can do that, the more places you can go, the more people you can meet and chat to, the more exposure you've got, and the better chance of becoming creative that you're going to have.
Yeah, that's Billy Connolly said, travel expands the mind.
Absolutely.
That's exposure to different cultures. As you say, I love that kind of the unexpected and how that kind of triggers stuff. And
we kind of call it creative collisions. So it's like you're giving a chance for creative collisions to happen. I was doing a talk about this the other day, because our new office has moved into the social hub Glasgow, which is the ultimate place for creative collisions to happen, right? Because it's a student hall, so you've got student travellers, it's a business hotel, so you've got all these international travellers. You've then got office spaces, event spaces, bars, etc. But you've got all of these different collision points. And so it's the ultimate melting pot for creativity to happen. Yeah. And it's why, what I was saying the other day was, during the pandemic, we were all forced to go remote. And I was telling you earlier, I'd signed a 10-year lease 30 days before the pandemic. Still got the...
And there was no flex in that. They weren't for...
So I think we'd moved in, the lease was signed, moved in 30 days before. We had a big party, and it was amazing. Put all of my money into this amazing space, because I really believe the physical environment is
absolutely.
A big sort of impact on your creativity. But then the pandemic happened, it forced us all to go remotely. And so Made Brave was one of the first companies to go remote at the time, and STV had picked up at the time and put us on TV chatting about it, as if we knew what we were doing. And then we were obviously all forced to go remote. And at the beginning, I was one of the first companies as well, out of the gate. About 2 months later, I said to my team, everyone can work wherever they want, forever. Now, I've since learned forever is a word we should use very lightly in our vocabulary, because every business is different, of course, right? We're all in different businesses, so whatever I say is, again, my experience here.
Yes, absolutely.
But I sent everyone home and said, look, because I wanted to give everyone the same flexibility and freedom and trust that, that we have as a leader. And I thought that was the right thing, but I slowly watched creativity dwindle. And my currency is creativity, right? Yeah. So I've got to have the best creativity. I noticed our teams go into silos, and I noticed just things weren't working the same. And I think what we did there was we needed to go home at that time, because we're in a pandemic and it's scary. And we need to go in our caves as human beings, right? With our family, and we cuddle up. And so we're all in our caves and feeling safe. But I eventually, I ended up saying to my team, I've got this wrong. And I had to do a U-turn. I had to go publicly and say, look, I'm changing completely, and I'm bringing everyone back. And it's because I think those creative collisions are really important. And if you go remote, every conversation is then predicted and scheduled, right? So we only have a catch-up on a Friday at 2 o'clock. Yeah. So then I've never got a chance to bump into you and someone else at a time when something's in your head and we join dots. Yeah. And so if you remove that completely from your company, I think that you're removing the chance for creative collision. So I think there's a balance somewhere in the middle, and that's where we've moved to now. We now have our team are in Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Yep. And we fly all our remote team in. So we've got a team across the UK.
Right, okay.
And we bring them all in. The reason we bring them all in, because it's just that chance for that to happen. And then we sort of divide and disappear. Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah. So.
No, I think it's a really interesting topic right now, probably because everybody, but a lot of people, a lot of bigger businesses,
like Amazon just brought everyone back, and so everyone's trying to think, what do we do? What does this mean? And
I think that's I remember going remote, and it kind of worked. And as you say, we're all safe, and everybody was set up to do it. But we came back. We decided we would just come back full time. and it was like June, would it be June 21 or something like that?
Yeah, maybe.
Is that
I can't remember. I think I blacked out for about 3 years.
Yeah. There's a haze of red wine and 3 o'clock in the afternoon and all that stuff. But we realised as well that we require creativity and development. And also human relationships. Our whole business is built on
connections.
That. Just the functionality of doing a Teams call or something is fine just to get something done.
Yeah.
But to have an expansive conversation, build trust, to build a relationship, it just doesn't work. So we ended up doing that, and I'm really glad that we did, because we saw a massive change in the energy within the team when we did that, and we've stayed like that ever since.
Yeah, well, I think I was reading it's proven that your brain releases oxytocin and dopamine when you collaborate in person. So not only does that feel good, but it improves creativity. And I actually went on a trip to San Francisco in 2016, and I got to visit some of the most creative companies in the world. I got to visit Pixar and Facebook and IDEO and Twitter and all of these things. And I got to speak to people from the board of each of them. And actually, believe it or not, there's a lot of Scottish people that get out and about in the world. We're everywhere. We're making our way around the way. But like at Pixar, they actually designed, like what I found was that creativity is not taken for chance there. It's engineered. Right. And so at Pixar, they designed their office around a central atrium, so all departments are around it, so that people have to collide day by day, So, and that was Steve Jobs that designed that atrium for that to happen. And then you've got like companies like Zappos, so the shoes. The guy Tony Hsieh, he's called. So he famously closed down a tunnel from the car park to the offices, so that all of the people coming into the building had to come through a central entrance to collide as well. Yeah. So, I really believe that the physical environment, making sure people collide, making sure they come into a place they want to come into. But what I've since realised since moving to the social hub is that if you have your business, so I had my business and it wasn't in the best area. It was, for all the right reasons, it was in an area that was going to regenerate, but hadn't because of the because of the pandemic. Yeah. But the reason that San Francisco and New York, etc., seem to spit out amazing brands and businesses and unicorns is because they're all surrounded by amazing businesses and brands. Mm-hmm. So they're all colliding together. Yeah. And that mixing pot creates, again, the ultimate space for collisions and creativity and success to happen.
Because it's a great, we could spend all day on this probably, but you think about our own city centre here in Glasgow, and there is a lack of that at the moment, isn't there? We need more people in the city to have those to have those collisions.
And that's why like the social hub and that little embryo that's starting, it's creating all sorts of businesses around it. And if it can just span out and span out and span out, that's how you can make change.
That's brilliant. So maybe just as we, the conversation starts to wind down, is there any, you talked earlier about EOS, what is it called?
EO, Entrepreneurs Organisation.
And these shared experiences that you use to help each other. Is there anything that you would like to share with everybody listening, one of your experiences that perhaps they could learn from in their lives?
Well, I think for anyone listening, and I'm sure probably your listeners are all people who are interested in business or starting businesses, or is that I remember sitting thinking, I can't do what other people do, and when you see business people, but we're all figuring it out. And I think a nice message maybe to someone is to know that you're more talented than you think you are. You just need to get started. Yeah. But what I'd also marry that up with is don't be pressured into today's culture where everyone feels they have to have a business, because that's not what success looks like for everyone. And a lot of people ask me, should I start this business? Mm-hmm. But for some people it's right to be freelancer, and to be just you and providing for yourself and your family on your own. For some people it's right to be employed, because some of the stressful parts of feeding yourself and feeding a pipeline of work is also right. And then for some people it's right to be able to lead or grow a team. But don't feel that you have to be one or the other, and success can be any of those three.
Yeah, that's really good. I think there's something in there about figuring out. We talked earlier about what's important to you right now, but it's like figuring out what's most important to you overall. What are your values, your purpose, is this what I want to do, or am I doing it because somebody said you should do this and you have
your mum and dad pressured you into something.
And it's all, there's ego and all sorts of stuff caught up in that. That's really good. I like that. I think it is worth considering all of those things before you set out.
Yeah.
What do you want, and where do your talents lie, and then kind of build on that.
I know I often, as well, to tag on at the end of that, is not only your talents. I always say people have got a superpower and they've got a kryptonite. So my superpower, and I'm going to say I'm good at creativity. I like creativity and I'm good at ideas. But my kryptonite is organising those ideas and structuring them. And so, but I now know that. And so I now know that I need to surround myself with organisational structure and people that are good at that. So the sooner you can get to know your kryptonite, the better. And not to be scared of it. So I always encourage younger people when I meet them, when you're going to a job interview, don't just say what you're great at. Say, I am rubbish at this, I'm rubbish at that, I'm rubbish at that. Don't give me that. Because then someone knows exactly where to put you. And if you put people in the place where their heart sings and their mind fires, they're going to get the best out of them. But so it's encouraging. Find what you're bad at is a good skill to have.
Yeah, over the years I've found out quite a lot of things.
I know, I could write a list of things that I am not good at, and then there's one little thing.
Really good at one of those things.
One tiny.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And something we're going to carry on with the podcast. We've got other guests coming up. Is there a question that comes to mind you think that you might want me to ask somebody that you think would be quite interesting, another business owner, an entrepreneur?
Sure. So obviously my company's called Made Brave. So bravery is in our name, and I've thought a lot about bravery all of my life, or all of my working life in Made Brave. I suppose my question for the next guest would be, what does bravery mean to you?
I like that. I really like that. Do you know that's one of our brand values?
Is it?
Internally as well.
Bravery.
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah.
That's the best brand value you could have.
It is. Well, you've got the name now, so we can't use that. But no, that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Well, I suppose it's bravery is one of those things that is a great value to have because it means different things to different people. And bravery for some people can be stepping out the door in the morning.
Yeah.
Bravery for other people can be stepping out an aeroplane like in Red Bull style.
Yeah.
And so bravery lives everywhere, and it's a great theme. It's a great thing to use as a value because you can flex it. And when you're creating values in your company, that's what you want. You want themed things. Like often people go, our values are professionalism, integrity. And you're like, no. They're givens. If you don't have professionalism, if you don't have integrity, again, we're not in business.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that your values are bravery because these things should have themes that let you storytell, that let you flex. Like to give you an example, at Made Brave, one of our values is this world belongs to the brave, right? And the underlying message is ask for forgiveness, not permission. So go do stuff. If you get it wrong, it's okay.
Yeah.
We've then got be your weird self, which is all about we're all unique and we're weird in our own way, but we're all different, and that's what makes a team. So it lets me talk about all those topics. We've got amigos without egos, which is it's just again team win. So when you create values, when you're building a brand, it's not about creating those individual words. It's try to create something that give you tools to play with. Because when you're trying to create a brand, you're trying to create a belief system. Yeah. And so those values are there to help you shape that belief system. And so bravery is a very good one to be.
I love that. It's not... we were talking earlier about some of the work that you do at Made Brave and that idea of getting everybody to understand what does it mean to them. Because as you say, it doesn't mean that word doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. It's going to mean something else at different people, different stages of their careers and all that stuff. But can they buy in and
they're essentially they're the behaviours that you want to see in your business, and you also use them to attract and repel people, right? So some people might go, oh, that sounds a lot of crap, bravery, blah blah blah. Great, you're not for us. We don't. You're not meant to be a customer. You're not meant to be a team member, and that's all the tools and everything in your brand toolkit. That's what you're using it for, to attract and repel people.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your time.
Cheers.
Cheers.